Hello, I think I'm popping on a little bit early to this live. I just wanted to share a few thoughts that I've been having recently after having conversations with some beautiful women and also just some personal self-reflection. And I also was just kicked out of my house. We just put our house on the market yesterday. I work from home, so unfortunately I have to leave the house every time somebody wants to come look at it. I also have to keep it ridiculously pristine and clean while being a mama to a 3-year-old. So I see that Susie just joined. Hi, Susie. If you're interested in watching, I'm just jumping into the topic today, which is I'm going to be talking about kind of the pitfalls behind nutrition science and really why that matters and why you should even care about that, and kind of leading into why cherry picking is an important thing to know about as well, because it's a really common thing that is done, and I want to explain what that means for you as a consumer, as somebody reading information, why cherry picking is something you should know about if you don't already, and you may, which is awesome. But I kind of want to elaborate. Hey, Nicole, nice to see you. I see a couple people's names popping up. If I don't say hi, it's nothing personal. This app is a little bit weird sometimes with whose name shows up. So feel free to say hi. I'd love to know if you're watching live. Just shout out a little hello. You can wave or whatever you need to do. And then the last thing I want to talk about, okay, there's Susie. Awesome. The last thing I wanted to talk about today was seeking your own truth, and why I find it to be so incredibly paramount, especially in the world that we're living in right now. We're living in a world of information overload, right? He said this, she says that, and there's too much information, right? Hey, Jacqueline. So nice to see everyone here. Hey. So I want to kind of wrap it up and talk a little bit about finding your own truth, because that's really what I'm passionate about when I work with women, is helping them sift and sort through the nutrition science, which honestly, you guys, I'm going to just say has value. Like I'm a nutrition research at heart, like I love nutrition research, but I want to show how you can use that gently to find what your truth is when it comes to food and body. And honestly, it's going to extend to any aspect of life, right? Especially with everything that we're exposed to in the modern day, with a deep connection through social media and the news, and we just don't know who says what and if it's true, right? So let's get started with, and if you have questions as I'm chatting, please drop them in the chat box. They're a little bit delayed, so they pop up like maybe 3 or 4 seconds after I'm talking. So be patient with me, but I will try to answer questions as I go as well. So the first thing, and I did take notes because I wanted to make sure I talked about everything that was coming through. But the first thing is just about nutrition science. So I started studying nutrition as an undergrad almost 20 years ago. And really, like, it felt like the truth, right? Like I was reading nutrition papers in every single class that I took. But what I learned through the study of nutrition and through my professors, and I'm sure any of you who watch or study research or understand like statistics and research and whatnot, understand that every nutrition research study has fallacies, right? Like it's not perfect. There's a lot of things called confounding variables. These are variables that kind of play into the end result. There's bias that comes from the researchers, whether they want to or not. Usually there's a little bit of bias that a researcher goes into, even if they try to stay completely unbiased when generating their hypothesis, it still can creep in. There's a lot of industry generated research. So it's interesting to see how sometimes research studies funded by big companies can actually play into the results of a research study. So there's all kinds of things when you're reading a research paper, and I don't expect anybody to know all this. Like I still feel confused by it when I pick up a new research study, because there's so many things that you have to look at to really understand what the truth is underneath the nutrition research, right? That's why people make their entire like PhD nutrition professors, like their entire lives are often dedicated to really picking through the research and understanding what the truth is and what we can actually take out of it and apply in the population. So a lot of research is controlled, and we know, you and I both know, that our lives are completely uncontrollable, right? We have so many variables in our life that make us a unique human being that no research study can actually tell us exactly what we should do for our own bodies. And I'm really just speaking to health and nutrition right now, but you could apply this to really any aspect of your journey, like not even, it could be relationships or job search or whatever. It could be anything, but there's a lot of pitfalls in research. So what I see the media doing is a new research study comes out, right? And they say some big, bold claim like X and Y food causes cancer, or eggs are the worst thing in the world because this particular study showed that they raised cholesterol or whatever, right? Like you've heard these different claims and it seems to vacillate, right? Like one day this food is good for you, one day this food is bad for you. One day, the Atkins diet was just the popular, all the rage. And then the next day they're saying it causes heart disease, right? So you see this vacillation in nutrition research, and this can be so confusing. Please let me know if you feel confused by the nutrition messages that are coming out. And a lot of it has to do with how the media hypes up 1 to 2 research studies that indicate one tiny little thing, and it's totally out of context, right? Like the study was done on a sample size of like 5 people, or it was a case study. There's a lot of variables that really make research good, like kind of okay, or not so good at all, right? So it's important that when we are sifting and sorting through media's headlines, and this is where I think the important thing is, something that says, oh, X, Y, and Z is going to cause X, Y, or Z. We rarely can find causation through research. We can see, you can make some assumptions from the research, like, oh, I consistently see, this particular nutrient is involved in this type of health outcome, right? Like we do have those consistencies, and that's what nutrition or evidence-based nutrition practice is all about. It's about multiple research studies kind of pointing towards the same thing. Hey, Liv, nice to see you. I'm just jumping in and talking about nutrition research, some of the pitfalls of nutrition research. So I'm glad you're here. So basically we just have to be really, we aren't expected as people who don't study nutrition. I would never expect people to understand some of the deeper layers of nutrition research, but it's so important that you understand that media outlets, social media, the news will latch on to one particular study, make a huge outrageous claim about it, okay? And it really can throw you for a loop, right? You get really confused, but I thought that this food was good for me or whatever, right? Like, so there's a lot of confusion that I see clients coming in and they're doing all these wacky things based on a news study. And I did a poll last week with everyone, and most of you are getting your information from the internet. No problem. I do too. It's about finding information that's actually accurate and evidence-based and true, but even that has pitfalls. So even evidence-based nutrition is not perfect. And I'm going to explain why during my last point when I talk about seeking your own truth when it comes to health and nutrition, because it's really, really important you understand this. And this is why I'm so freaking passionate about educating women to reprogram their relationship with food and body, because it helps us cut through the BS and really understand what's true for us. Okay, Liv, you bring up a great point. So you've gone down the hole with veganism. With the rabbit hole. Okay, that's very good. And actually that's going to be kind of my second point, and that's just concept of cherry picking. So cherry picking data is more or less, and I didn't really look up a definition, but I'll try to explain it here. But cherry picking is when a person or a company or a movement goes out and seeks information based on what their belief system already tells them. Okay? So cherry picking data is super common, like crazy common, especially in the internet and people who are not well trained in nutrition science. I see a lot of false leaders out there saying they understand nutrition, but they're promoting something that to others, they're pushing their truth on others, whether or not it's science-based. And they will tell you that it's science-based, and they'll have all these research studies to share it. But what they've actually done is they've cherry-picked the studies that support what their conclusion is, what they want their conclusion to be. right? And I see this with vegans, and I'm not calling out vegans. I have no problem with veganism, okay? I just want to say that. I've worked with people who thrive on a vegan diet, okay? But I do see I have seen this a lot through this community where there's a lot of research that's cited that does not pull in the other positive research about meat consumption, right? Like I see all this research about not, that meat consumption is bad, but actually on the flip side, there's actually a lot of research that shows that meat consumption is actually very positive for a person's health outcomes. So you see this, and you see the same thing on the carnivore side, right? Like the hardcore keto and paleo, they'll find research against plant-based, vegan plant-based diets, not necessarily plant-based diets, because plant-based diet, that definition is a little hazy, right? So, but you see these like really extreme positions that people take, and it has nothing to do with the actual research out there, but it actually has to do with a person's own propaganda, what they believe in. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I really want to state, like, if you truly in your heart feel like not eating animal products is for you, like that's awesome. Like I get it. And so, but be careful where you find your research about it, right? Like look at that. So Liv, you even said, I have no issue with veganism, but my body wasn't great on it. And I see that over and over and over again, Liv. Like I see that so commonly. I've seen to be honest, and this is just my experience, but I've actually seen very few people thrive on veganism. I think it takes a particular genetic phenotype, and it takes a particular lifestyle to handle a vegan diet, which is generally low in things like zinc, iron, B vitamins that are actually really essential and found in some animal products. Does it mean you have to eat a ton of animal products? No. But I'm just saying, like, this is what I have seen. This is definitely not what you might hear from somebody else, right? I'm an animal lover, and, I like have a deep passion. So my choice in my life has been, I recognize the need that I have, my body, and then we're going to get into seeking your own truth. I need some animal protein. Like I feel my best with, I don't have to have huge amounts of it, but I really do feel my best with some, right? And that's my truth. So because I'm an animal, I'm a supporter of animal rights, and I want, animals to be treated well. I try to source my animal products the best I can, and I buy it from places that are humanely raising the animals and taking care of them. They're usually grass-fed beef, organic pastured chickens, things like that, because that's a value to me, right? It doesn't have to be a value to you. I'm just sharing, how we navigate this actually comes down to what our own truth is. And that's where I lead into the last point. So I hope that understanding cherry picking helps you kind of discern when you're reading nutrition information on the internet. Really look at the person's background credentials. What are their moral beliefs? And there's nothing wrong. If you feel passionate about what they're passionate about and you align with their message, that's okay. That's great. But just remember, like when you are sharing something to someone else, like it may not be their truth, right? It may not be their truth. And depending on where you sourced your information, that information could have been deeply cherry picked. And I'm going to raise my hand and say, I have been known to cherry pick information. Like I've wanted to believe that a certain food is healthy or unhealthy. So I've actually looked for information to prove myself right. That is cherry picking. Okay. So I just want you to know, like, this is an issue, especially in an age where freedom of speech is it's huge on the internet. Like people are sharing their opinions, which is beautiful, and I support that. But if they're backing it up by cherry-picked data, you've got to just keep your eyes open for that. Just stay discerning and then tap in. And this is where learning your own truth is such an essential piece. And I'm going to keep this around the topic of health and nutrition because that's what I do. I help women reprogram their relationship with food and body. But you could actually apply this to anything. And it's really tapping into what is your truth when it comes to food and nutrition. So as I explained, there are pitfalls when it comes to nutrition research. It's an absolutely wonderful thing that we research things, and the more research we have on a particular topic, the closer we get to a quote-unquote truth. But there's this thing that I researched in my master's program, and it's a big term, so get ready for this. Hi Cynthia, and Sarah has jumped on. Hi guys. But this concept is called biochemical individuality. So if you haven't heard of this, you can look it up. I was trained in functional medicine, and we use this concept to really understand that there are pitfalls in nutrition science. And instead of looking at patients through the lens of, oh, the research says this, so we have to do this, that's just one component of patient care. There's this other component that of biochemical individuality where we are all different, right? Genes, another metaphor that's often used in functional medicine practices is that genes load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger, right? Genes load the gun. So you're born with a set of genes. You can't really do much about that. You're probably going to have a certain color hair, a certain frame, a certain shape. You may be more or less prone to this disease or that disease, right? That's your genes, right? And you have actually more influence and more impact over your gene expression than we ever have realized until now. We recognize that the environment plays a huge role on whether or not we turn on or turn off certain genes in our body. Why is this important? Because that means that not everyone exists on a diet the same way, right? Like I might thrive on a particular eating style because that's the way my body, my genes respond more appropriately to that. Or when I'm under stress, when I'm under stress, I eat differently than when I'm not under stress, right? When I'm, since becoming a mother to a cute little 3-year-old, my eating habits have changed because that's my environment, right? And so we have to honor that when we're looking at our own health and nutrition, that we are ever evolving creatures, and our nutrition needs change not only from variable or to individual, from individual to individual, but also across our lifespan. So what you ate when you were 20 probably affects you a little bit more differently than when you're 40, 50 and above, right? Like food just makes an impact. And I've heard this a lot from clients like, oh, when I was 20, I could handle a whole bunch of fried food and then blah, blah, blah. And then they get to be in their 40s and they're like, oh my gosh, like I can't handle that anymore. Like I eat French fries and I feel like crap, right? Well, a lot of variables change over our lives. So that's where tuning in, this is such an incredible practice to reprogram our relationship with food and body. So many women, and I'll say this over and over, but so many of us women we have what I call a really high level of mind hunger, okay? Mind hunger, I explained this in another video that's here in this group, but mind hunger is all this knowledge. I also call it, do you suffer from the know diet, KNOW? Do you know too much about food and nutrition? And all you're thinking about is what the headline said or what this nutrition guru said, and you're trying to like organize all these rules and these things to meet your healthiest whatever, and it's just like overwhelming, right? Like I have suffered from the no diet. I have known too much about food and nutrition that it's actually paralyzed. It's cut me off from my body. I ate out of a space of, oh, good food, bad food. This is better. This isn't better. This is what the research. And I stopped tuning into what was going on in my physical body. And this is a huge issue, right? Hey, Kelly. I'm wrapping up, but please stay on, because if you guys have any questions, I want you to pop those in, because I am happy to take any questions live. And I want to know if this is true for you. If you resonate with this, does this information like make sense? Am I totally off my knocker right now? Like, you can tell me. So anyway, this whole concept is, if you know too much and you're all spending all the time in your head, or you're stepping on the scale every day to determine your worth based on the number, we start to get anxious and overwhelmed, and those actually play against our physiology, right? They put us in a stressed out state, and our bodies, the metabolism just doesn't work the same when we're stressed out about food. So tapping into the body, right? Like taking some deep breaths before a meal, reading a nutrition research study, and then like really deciding, right? Is this true for my body, right? Like, is this true for me? Because it's okay if it's not, it's okay if it's not. I have a great story. I had a conversation with another dietitian, and she lived her life in pain for years. Like years. And she went to school for nutrition, and she started doing all the things, right, that the food guide pyramid suggests. Okay. And I have my own issues with the food guide pyramid, but that's for another live. So because it doesn't take into account this biochemical individuality concept. So this nutritionist, this dietitian friend of mine, she's like, about 5 years ago, she discovered, oh good, you guys are resonating, good. So she discovered that her body did not do well on really fibrous fruits and vegetables. And she recognized that her body did really well on, I think it's called like the carnivore diet. So eating a lot of animal protein and dairy, primarily, with some vegetables, but not a ton. For her, like, that was a tough pill to swallow in some ways because it goes totally against conventional wisdom. But when she allowed herself to accept this and be okay with it and start doing it and practicing it, her body pain went away, and it's like literally changed her life. Now, other nutrition professionals might give her a hard time about that because red meat consumption causes cancer, red meat consumption causes blah, 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 right? But not for her body. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the same thing can be true for somebody who's eating, a highly meat diet. They might feel terrible, but they throw more plants in their diet. They start replacing, I call it the what's it called? The crowd-in method. They start, crowding in more colorful fruits and vegetables into their diet, and they start feeling better when they're eating less animal products, right? So it's just an interesting thing to consider for yourself as you're navigating all of this. You may not fit the conventional standard or the nutrition guru that you follow on Instagram. And that is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with you. There's a lot influencing how you can handle and metabolize food. And one of the most important things is your thoughts. What's going on mentally, emotionally, because that actually impacts digestion as well. How well you turn nutrition into important components for your body's health. So it's just food for thought as you guys are navigating this. I just felt like this is an important thing to talk about. Understand what cherry picking is. Understand that there's, nutrition science is not perfect. Yes, it is an amazing tool. I will always look to research as I'm helping and supporting a patient. But at the same time, we also have to help ourselves tap into our own internal wisdom. Okay. And there's a lot of things we can do for that. I'm not going to go into now, but tapping into that is like a huge part of the healing process. Knowing what your truth is more important than any nutrition research, in my opinion, out there today. Okay. Nutrition research, by the way, is super young, like super young. It's only been around for, I don't know, not very long, like 100 years. Like it's really a very new science. So also keep that in mind. Okay. So last thing I want to share with you guys, my schedule has finally freed up. I have a few more spots for a food freedom discovery call. So if this resonates with you, if you feel called to get on a phone call with me, just to explore this concept for yourself, you're interested in moving forward with your health goals without a diet, you want to learn how to reprogram that relationship with food and body, you want to learn how to tune into your body and thrive in a community with women who are just like you, let me know. I would love to set that up. I am out, but I'll try to find the link and I'll drop it in the comments here. So if anybody is interested, they can schedule that. Like I said, my schedule was booked the past couple of weeks up until today, but I do have a few more openings left this week into next. So thank you guys for watching. Again, if you guys have any questions, whether you're watching this live or watching the recording, please drop them in. I'll come back and check things out. And in the meantime, happy eating, and yes, thank you, highly recommend. Thanks, Cynthia. It's so nice to see you guys on here. I love this space to chat about all the things. So all right, have a great day, you guys. We'll talk soon.